What's up, guys? Happy day! It's Kayla Bundy, and you're listening to the Finding Hope podcast. I'm so excited you're here joining this community, this sisterhood, where we are all about mindset, personal growth, getting better, and being the best version of ourselves to live the best life possible for ourselves. So I'm so excited that you are a part of that and that we get to learn and grow together. For this week's segment, what I would say to the person making an important decision right now. You will always end up where you need to go. The path you take to get there is in your hands, but the destination will be constant. You will get to where you need to go. So don't put too much pressure on yourself. And when making the decision, I would always say notice if you feel peace about it. Because your gut instincts are usually worth listening to, and if you don't feel peace, don't force it. So the topic for today's episode, we are going to discuss how to be set free from needing the approval from others and feeling the need to defend ourselves. I think we can all relate in some way to feeling that pressure to defend ourselves or attain approval from people in our lives. Either working in a way that pleases them, liking the same music as them, wearing clothes similar to what they like. All of these are just examples of ways to adjust yourself for the approval of someone else. And when it comes to defending oneself, I know I've personally experienced this feeling in various ways based on my circumstances, but either someone has said something about my character that isn't true, thought or spoke in a way that took away from who I am, or projected their own insecurities or issues onto me and assumed that to be my truth as well. It can just be so easy to feel the need to explain and defend when false things are placed on you. So my goal for us is to be able to understand why the need to please or defend ourselves is so rooted in us and how to break those patterns if they are no longer serving us. I think a lot of these tendencies trace back to fear. Fear of not being good enough, fear of not being understood, fear of being criticized, fear of losing others. If someone's speaking in a way that isn't true to who you are, there can definitely be a fear of what other people are going to think, a fear of failing or a fear of disappointing. Fear can take away from so much of who we are and what we have to offer. Whether it's us seeking approval from the relationships we're in, or our parents, our friends, even our church or community. Whenever we do get that approval, it's not fulfilling, and getting that approval once is never enough. It's a constant losing game in the sense that the people or things you feel the need to get approval from or defend yourself to will never push you to create your own voice if you're chasing after theirs. I remember for years, people would ask me, like, what's your biggest fear in life? Or what's your biggest fear? And I'm sure we've all been asked this question. And for years, my answer was always, my biggest fear is disappointing people. Or my biggest fear is letting other people down. And that is like honestly what has stemmed so much of what I do, what I think, what I say, how I act. It has been what has guided me so much in my life, because a lot of where we tend to act from is a place of fear. And so when my biggest fear was disappointing others, I shaped my whole life to try to avoid experiencing that, doing that, and letting somebody else down. There can be various aspects of fear, and that's kind of what I listed. Like maybe, there's a fear of losing people because you've had past trauma in relationships, or you've lost parents, you've lost friends, you've lost family. And so there's a fear of, losing that, or there's a fear of losing your reputation. There's a fear of, not being good enough, and there's a fear of not being understood, or there's a fear that if they know you, then maybe they wouldn't like you. And fear can be what stems so many different things, and a lot of times fear can be what drives us. And so where I hope we are able to get to is where we are drawing from a place of abundance and of so much true confidence and understanding of ourselves and the world around us, that fear is not what's dictating our thoughts and actions or our desires. And approval is not what's driving us to get to the places we want to go or we think other people want us to go. And honestly, like, something I've really learned about myself is the more I try to please others, usually the more disappointed I am in myself. Because the more I try to be what somebody else wants, I start losing myself in that process. And I'll get to a place where I don't even know who I am anymore. I don't really know what I like. I don't really know what I dislike. I'm so consumed with trying to not let somebody else down that I actually turn into a version of myself that I'm not proud of, and I'm not confident in, and I'm not stable in, and my voice does not feel strong. And friends, that is never a place you want to be. That is not sustainable. And trying to live in a way that's pleasing to somebody else, you will always either feel like you're never enough, or you're always going to be seeking more and more approval. Because if you're seeking approval from the people around you or the world around you, you're always going to be left needing more and more of it. And I think this is super important in relationships. I've been in relationships where they are seeking approval in so many things. And they're seeking approval in the way they look, seeking approval in knowing that I'm only looking at them, or they have all these built up insecurities, and they put a lot of pressure on me to be the voice that approves them in everything they're doing and saying, because they don't necessarily have that confidence in themselves. And if I do give them that approval, or if I have given them that approval in the times that I may not, or it might not cross my mind, that can create so many more insecurities in their head. And it definitely goes for girls as well. Like, I know friends that, they'll overthink, like, well, why didn't he compliment me when I wore this? And like, was it because I looked this way, or he didn't like it, or all of these things? And you can just build up so much in your head. And for guys I've dated, they would question so much, like, well, why didn't you tell me this? Or why didn't you reassure me in this? And why didn't you encourage me in this? Usually it's just because it wasn't on my mind, or I feel like I know that so well, and like I assume that they would know that truth for themselves, that I didn't know that I was supposed to play the role to approve them all of the time and give them that validation. And so I think whether you're the person giving the validation or approval, or you're the person seeking it, it's never going to align in a way that creates stability and a ground to really build upon for one another. Because no one should have that much power over somebody that in the ways they do or don't approve of them, it creates them to think and act differently. And no one should also be in the place seeking that, because if you're seeking that from somebody else, you're never going to feel like you are becoming the person you genuinely want to be when there's a skewed perspective or cloud over you that you are trying to fit into their box and what they like. I believe another reason that we might feel this need to not disappoint others, to defend ourselves, or attain approval can be from a lack of true confidence and self-worth. Taking the time to gain and believe the best about myself really shifted the need I felt for others to accept me for who I am and to defend myself. I feel like when I began having such a deeper understanding of myself and knowing myself so well over time, it has really led me to let go of the tendency to defend myself to people that will never truly listen. And by knowing myself so well, it's taught me that the people who don't see my true self or the qualities I love most about me only affects them in a negative way and not me. I would take it so personally, and it affected me so negatively that I would exhaust myself trying to prove them wrong or trying to justify myself, trying to explain myself, trying to make them understand my heart or my intentions. When in reality, if they don't know me in that way, and if they can't see my true self or they can't see my heart and soul, it really is just their loss. Because if they can't experience the parts of me that I'm really proud of and the parts of me that I feel like are so true to who I am, really the only person missing out is them. And if they are looking at me from a skewed perspective, or they're seeing me in a way that I feel the need to defend myself, that is something that I just need to let go of. The way I live doesn't have to please everyone around me. And those that want to appreciate my uniqueness will. And those that have misperceptions, it's usually because of an internal wound that hasn't been healed, and it's causing them to see me with cloudy vision. And vice versa. Like, in the people that I feel like I've had to prove myself to, they have never understood me. And maybe at times they understand me better, and at times they can see my heart more, or they know my intentions more. But the people in my life where I feel like there is this constant need to prove who I am, or defend myself, they aren't the people that have ever really known me. And in the friendships and the relationships I've had where I've never felt that, or it's very rare when I feel that, they are so wanting and knowing my heart and understanding my best, and they would never place that on me to ever put me in a position to prove myself. You know, of course you're going to go through times where you're disappointed with your friends or your family or the people you love most, because the people we love most, we tend to have the highest expectations for. And when we do get let down, it's easy to want them to make a big change and to prove us wrong and to prove that they're trustworthy and to prove that they're always going to be there and all of these things. But reality is, in my mind and in my perspective, we're all going to mess up. And if somebody messes up, I never expect them to prove me wrong. And because if I'm going to think that they're not trustworthy and they're not these things, then if those thoughts are already in my head, it really doesn't matter what they do. Those thoughts are still there. And I think the people we feel a strong need to defend ourselves to actually need the most amount of grace. Because once we can let go of the fear and know our voice and our opinions are the only ones that matter at the end of the day, we can understand that projection or an expectation for you to prove yourself to them really has nothing to do with you and everything to do with them. There is that saying that what we believe is true for ourselves, we think is true for other people around us. And that essentially means, like, what I believe is true for me, I'm going to naturally kind of project that on the people around me. So if I believe that everyone has good intentions, everyone has a good heart, then I think everyone around me thinks the same way. Or if I believe that people are always going to let you down and that you're always going to have bumps and battles and struggles to get through, then I basically think everyone around me believes the same thing. And so they have the same mindset about it. So I encourage you to use all the energy you've spent proving or defending yourself to improving yourself and getting to know yourself in a deeper way. gaining a constant confidence. That is my goal. I want us to have a constant confidence that isn't dependent on the people around us, on our circumstances, on our scenarios, no matter the seasons we're walking through. We have a constant confidence that becomes our truth. Because like I said, what we believe is true for us, we believe for the people around us. And the more we can work on our truth for ourselves, the better versions we are going to become for every person around us. And we will be able to see people in a way more beautiful, honest, forgiving, and loving way when we are able to see ourselves in that way. And no matter where you're seeking approval from, it's never going to give you what you're actually seeking. And it is fleeting, it is temporal, it is not eternal, and it is a battle that is just not worth fighting. And if you feel the need to defend yourself, I hope and pray that you are able to know yourself in a deeper way, and you are able to appreciate so much of who you are that the need to explain and prove yourself and show people the real you or make them see your heart, I hope those desires can minimize, and I hope your confidence is maximizing. Because once you know yourself so well and you're able to live that out so fully and so beautifully, I hope that no one will have to question you or will have to question those qualities about you, and they won't leave you feeling the need to defend yourself. You cannot control everyone's opinion of you and the standards that they hold you to or the expectations that they place on you. That is so out of your control, and I hope that you are just focusing on yourself. You're not looking for other people to validate you or to be the voice for you. I hope that this helped you understand or think on why you might be seeking these things in your life and why it's so easy to fall into that. And I hope that you can start operating out of a place of abundance instead of fear, and knowing that the things that are leaving your life, whatever you might be scared of, there's so much more to enter in. And just like a garden, when you dig things up and you create a hole, it is for something good and better to be planted inside of it. And so if you're scared of some of these holes being dug up and losing something and having this emptiness, I hope you know that all you're doing is really creating space for something more beautiful and more life-giving to be placed inside and to actually grow. So thank you guys so much for tuning in today, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on your walk, your run, your workout, as you're doing the dishes, whatever it is. I'm so glad you guys are here. I love you, and I will talk to you next week.